Predicting just relies upon having used the fractions enough that you have an idea of where they're going to go. So predicting the decimals, A is going to be 0.25, and you know that because it's a quarter and it's a quarter of one. So if you know that, then you know that 3/4 is going to be 0.75 because it's triple that, and 1/8 is going to be 0.125. And the reason I know that is because 1/8 is going to be exactly half 1/4 over here. So I just take half of that and I end up with that. So you're predicting your numbers can be a little bit off. Take a look at what you came up with. If you're close, give yourself a mark out of 3. Use the following number line to help you order the decimals from least to greatest. You can start off, well, what I would do is start off with my 0.5 here in the middle and see what I end up with. So I know I'm going to have 0.45, 0.4, 0.6, 0.68, and 0.85. And then I have used all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've used all 5 of my numbers. They're all in order from least to greatest. Be careful if you get hung up with the difference between 0.4 and 0.45, and you're wondering which one of those is greater. The way I like to think about it is like with money, if I have 40 cents or if I have 45 cents, I know that 45 cents is more. So that's one good way that you can think about decimals. So take a look at that and give yourself a mark if you got all that correctly. How are repeating decimals different from terminating decimals? Repeating decimals go on and on and on, whereas terminating decimals do exactly that. They terminate, meaning they have an endpoint. So for example, if I have 1/3 and I do my division to find my decimal, 0.33333, I know that goes on forever, so I can write that as 0.3 with an arrow over top. However, if I have 2/5 and I do my division to find my answer, it's just 0.4, and you see how it ends, so I do not need an arrow. I do not need my line over top. So if you know the difference, you wrote something down that says terminating decimals end, then you can give yourself a mark out of 1. I can convert a repeating decimal to a fraction, so change each one using bar notation. So this is something that we haven't talked about and that I doubt you have seen. Bar notation just means the line over top there. So if I had 0.3 like I used in the previous example, then I have my decimal over top. So you can do your division here, and I'll start with A. So I have 5/6. Well, I take 5 divided by 6, get my decimal, and I have 0.83. And if I pull that up again, you'll notice that it's 8, and the 3 is the only number that repeats, so my bar just goes over top of the 3. If it was 0.838383 and that was repeating, I could write that as 0.83, and the bar goes over top of both numbers. And then for my second one, I have 45 divided by 99. I get 0.454545. So just like I was talking about, 0.45, and the bar goes over both numbers. Take a look what you came up with. If you got that right, give yourself a mark out of 2. I can convert a terminating decimal to a fraction, so change each number to a fraction. The easiest way to do this probably is take 37 over 100, and I know that because I have my 2 decimal spots, that's out of 100. This one is going to be out of 1,000, so I'll have I'll have 238 over 1,000, and I can simplify that if I chose to. So the easiest thing I'm going to do here is divide it by 2 to start off with. So I'll get 119 over 500, and I know that I have no common denominator, so I could have simplified it to that. Give yourself a mark out of 2. Next, I can change 0.26 into a repeating decimal. All I need to do here, you need to realize here that 0.26 actually has a bunch of zeros at the end, and adding these doesn't change my equation, so I could think of the zeros as repeating. If you said that maybe they rounded the repeating decimal, so if it was 0.26, 2, 2, and the 2's are repeating, and you said they rounded it, I would give that to you as well. So give yourself a mark out of 1 if you realize that the zeros on the end can repeat without changing your number. Match a set of fractions to their decimal. This was in the first question, so I know that. 2/5 is 0.4, and 9/10 is 0.90. So take a look at that. Give yourself a mark out of 3 for each one that you got correct. A small high school in Saskatchewan has a male population of 128 students. Of these boys, 42 of them play football. Show the number of boys who play football as a fraction, and then show it as a decimal place to 3. So I have 42 students on top, 128 students in total. So there's my fractions. Now I need to convert this into a decimal, and I need to round to 3 decimal places there. So all I'm going to do is my division. So I have 128 divided by 42. And you can, oh, sorry, I punched that into the calculator wrong. So I have 42 divided by 128, and you see that I get 0.328 once I round, 0.328. And I want to expect you to do 128 into 42, but you see how I put my decimal. And what I should have done is line this up a little bit better. So when I started on my division, I know 128 goes into 4, 0 times into 42, 0 times into 423, and I just carried my decimal up here. And then I know that 128 multiplied by 3 equals 384. Do my subtraction, and I'm going to get 36. Well, I know that, bring down my next 0 that I added here, and etc. I'm going to end up with 384. Yeah, I wouldn't give you a number like this on your test. I wouldn't expect you to do that without a calculator. So give yourself a mark out of 2 if you got that correctly, 1 mark for the fraction, 1 mark for converting it into a decimal place. Order the fractions on this chart here. So the best way to do this, this one doesn't say you need to convert it. The best way when you have mixed set is to convert it if you're not sure about one. But I can start off by writing them on which side they're going to go. So I know 1/5 is smaller than a half. 0.75 is smaller than a half. I know, or it's bigger than a half, sorry. I know 2/3 is bigger than a half, and I know 0.6 is bigger than a half. So it doesn't really matter which way I'm going to go here, but I know that 1/5 is 0.2. I know that 2/3 is 0.66 repeating. I know that 0.6 is smaller than that, and I know that 0.75 is bigger than those there. So take a look at what you did. If you got them in order, give yourself a mark out of 4 for each one that is correct. So for example, if I had these two mixed up, then I would only get 2 out of 4. Using a model, explain how 1/2 is equivalent to 0.5. If I start off by drawing a box here, I'm going to put 10 squares inside of it. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. So I could show you that if I had 1/2 of these shaded, that's 1/2, and 0.5, I need to show how that's the exact same thing. So I could show how it's half of a whole. I know that. So again, if this represents one whole, right, that would be this equals 1, I would shade the same 5. So I just used the model to show that. So if you got that right, give yourself a mark out of 1. Give an example of when changing a fraction to a decimal is only an approximation of its value. What we're talking about here is repeating decimals. So I know that 2/3 is an exact thing, right? If I had 3 candy bars, I can show you what it looks like to have 2 of them, right? And that is a concrete example that I can give you. But if I write 0.66 repeating, that doesn't truly show you what it is. This is a concrete picture that you can see. This is a number that goes on forever and you can never really show, so it's only an approximation or an approximate value. So if you knew that and wrote something to that equation, give yourself a mark out of 1. Place the following numbers on the number line. A number between 0 and 1/2. Well, I'm going to pick 0.2 because I can. And a number between 0.6 and 0.34. Well, I know that this 0.75 from my first question, so I need a number that's in the middle, and I'm going to put 0.66. So this one you could have any number between 0 and 0.5, and over here you could have any number between 0.6 and 0.75. So if you got those right, give yourself a mark out of 2. Name the mistake on the number line, so circle all the ones that are incorrect. I'm going to start off by translating them all into decimals. So I have 0.65 here. 5/8. Oh, sorry about that. 5/8 is 0.625. Oh, and I wrote it in the wrong spot. So that was 0.625 was 5/8. Over here, I know that this is 0.3, and now I have them all in decimals. So you can see the ones that are out of place are my 0.3 and my 0.625, because this one should be over here, and this one should be over here. So those two were incorrect. Give yourself a half mark for each one that you circled correctly, and that one is out of 1. Predict the decimal equivalent for the following fractions. Is that not the first question? Oh, and somehow we started over. Okay, so that's the end of your test. I want you to go back through and total it up. It is out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 11, 14, 15, 17, 19, 20. And for this question, when you're going through, place them on the number line. Give yourself 1 mark if you got them all on the right side, and 1 mark if everything is in order. So if you had something here mixed up, you get 1 out of 2, but if they're all on the right side of half, you get 1 mark, and then if they're all correct, give yourself a mark. So that puts that out of 22, 25, and we're back to the start. So on the front page, give yourself a mark out of 25. We should have gone through each question there, and then you can come and hand it in to your teacher.